Good evening and welcome to our Lebanon City Council special meeting, Monday, July 27th, 2015. Please call the roll.
Mayor Brewer.
Here.
Mr. Kaiser.
Here.
Mr. Norris.
Here.
Mr. Deary.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mrs. Monroe.
Here.
Mr. Messer.
Here.
Chaplain Simpson, if you would come and give the invocation, please remain standing for the pledge.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this opportunity to come together. I thank you for a city that exercises its religious freedom and to come to you in prayer and to ask for your blessing. And I pray for each and every council member that's here and staff person that what you would do is put a hedge of protection around their families. God, we thank you for that protection as they lead us and guide us in the city that I love so very much. And God, I thank you for allowing me to serve here. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. We're going to go ahead. Again, this is our special meeting, starting with previous business, ordinance number 2015-082.
Ordinance number 2015-082 is an ordinance to proceed with an increase to the rate of the City of Lebanon, Ohio earnings tax from 1% per annum to 1.25% per annum effective January 1, 2016 by amending sections 151.03, 151.04, and 151.06 of the Lebanon Code of Codified Ordinances, the original City of Lebanon, Ohio earnings tax ordinances, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Clements.
This legislation will establish the authorization to proceed with an increase to the rate of the city's earnings tax from 1% to 1.25% to provide additional revenues to support the maintenance and new construction of public roadways for a period not to exceed 5 years, commencing January 1st, 2016.
And I would entertain a motion to adopt before there is any discussion.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right. And we will open it up to discussion.
Your Honor, I'll start
Yes.
if that's okay. Your Honor, this is a very important issue. Anytime this body thinks about raising the income tax on its citizens or even putting such a piece of legislation on the ballot, we should debate it extensively. I am for putting this legislation on the ballot, legislation that will give the citizens of Lebanon the chance to slightly raise the income tax so as to make up for a shortfall in revenue. It has been recognized since at least 2004 that there is a significant shortfall in revenue for the city in its general fund. In 2004, a group of citizens called the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee recommended that there be an increase in revenue because it was necessary in order to pay the city's general costs. The Citizens Financial Advisory Committee made a recommendation as to how that revenue could be raised. What we're proposing today is a slightly different way to raise revenue, but the point that the city needs more revenue is the same. This committee issued its report in 2004. Since then, numerous provisions have been on the ballot to raise revenue. All of them have failed. More recently, the city has lost several key general revenue sources. These losses include a $200,000 annual reduction in the local government fund distributions from the state, an average annual loss of $150,000 due to the elimination of the estate tax, and an average annual loss of $300,000 due to the elimination of the tangible property tax and local property tax devaluations. These losses represent approximately 7% of the city's total general fund revenue. So the city needs more revenue. The function of the city that has suffered the shortage of revenue is the proper maintenance of our roads. For many, many years, we have not properly maintained our roads. We should be putting about another $1.5 million a year into maintaining our roads. As a result, of course, we have roads that look bad, roads that are not serving the residents of Lebanon properly, and the commercial enterprises of Lebanon. Lebanon aesthetically doesn't look as good. Lebanon has more difficulty attracting investment, including new businesses, because the city roads just do not look good and do not serve the needs of the residents. Ever since I have been on council for about 4 years, the city manager has come to us on a regular basis with cuts. I believe every time the city manager has recommended cuts, whether it be in staff or to city property or other projects that would save the city money, the council has enthusiastically endorsed those cuts. We cannot cut anymore without cutting into the essential services that the city provides. So we are faced with continuing to have a diminution in the quality of our roads or raising revenue. The roads is a core function of the city. It's absolutely necessary to the growth and the health of the city. And therefore, I think the time has come for a revenue provision. At the moment, there's not a single city in southwestern Ohio that has a lower income tax rate. We are well below the average income tax rate for southwest Ohio. All funds raised by this measure will go directly into roads. These funds will, for the most part, solve the road problem, put the city back on a good financial footing, and make the city an attractive place to live and to have a business. I know everyone hates tax increases. You would not be an American if you didn't hate tax increases. But there would not be in America, there would not be a civilization without taxes. Civilization needs adequate roads. A healthy city needs adequate roads. 11 years after the committee recommended a revenue provision, I think the time has come. We have got to put this on the ballot. I encourage everyone in Lebanon to vote for it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Others?
Yeah, I'd like to echo those. Made some very good comments. The city has lost revenue, as he stated, from a loss of revenue from the state. We can't be dependent on the state anymore. We may lose, who knows what we'll lose next from them. We have to take the bull by the horns and take care of ourselves here in the city. And that may be hard to do, but raising taxes is about the only way we have to go. We could cut other services, but I don't think the citizens of the city would like it if we had to cut some of the services that they now are enjoying. And the roads have been what has taken the hit. We can't grow this city because we don't have any funds to grow or to annex or to expand. So we don't want to cut any more of what the city does and what the city does well, but we do need our roads fixed. And this being directed solely for the repair of roads is, I feel, a very, very needed tax, and I hope the citizens will pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Others?
Mayor?
Yes.
I'll go. You know, after listening to Councilmember Deary and Councilmember Kaiser, you know, there's not much to argue or quibble over regarding the necessary needs or functionality of what we need to do as a city. And I'm not saying that we may not need a tax increase. However, what I am saying, prior to going to the city or our constituents and asking them to pull money out of their pocket for yet again another tax increase, or at least another submittal for a tax increase, that we look intently into the budget, and I don't think we've done that. I've repeated 2 weeks ago several issues regarding the budget that is a concern to me. I had our city auditor do an analysis for me regarding payroll study, and from 2000 to 2015, in the year 2000, we started off with about a $6.9 million total revenue for employee salaries with approximately 150 plus employees. 2015, with 127 employees, we're at $16.9 million payroll, with approximately $4 million worth of increases in COLA, across the board increases, and performance pay increases. I think that what we need to do, there are a lot of administrative positions here that are well above board as far as their salaries are concerned. You wouldn't catch that in a private industry by any means. I think we need to look at a comprehensive employee analysis to see exactly what we need to do to be able to adjust some of these payroll salaries. In the proposal that I came up with approximately $450,000 in payroll deductions, and I also looking at the scenario from the municipal court system where we are spending almost approximately $1.2 million in services for our municipal court, and we're bringing in a little over $500,000. It's a 2-to-1 loss ratio in this system.
Just have you pause for just a second?
Yes, Mayor.
Some of the issues, and I apologize to all of you for not being a part of our last meeting as I was out of town. And I know, Councilmember Rodriguez, you had brought your list, which in some sense impacts to some extent what we're dealing with, but not totally. And what I would suggest from those of you that are here tonight, if you would like to, and I'm sure you would, to bring that to a work session where we could take a look at those components
Yes, ma'am.
Of that, to kind of discuss all of that in this meeting this evening, I think is probably not the best venue to do that. You know, as an example, as you talk about the court piece, which is a function of county and state, it's a much bigger picture here. So to kind of focus on, I'm definitely hearing you say that you feel as though there could be more cuts made in your perspective, more cuts made that would, I'll use the word, free up monies for the roads. But I would like that whole discussion, if council would support that, to move to a work session to discuss those pieces in more detail.
Mayor, I certainly appreciate that, and I will be wrapping up in a minute or two. I think that from the perspective that Mr. Deary had the opportunity to speak in favor of this, and I promise you I am getting to a bit of an indication that will shed some light on where I'm coming from. So I promise I'll wrap this up in just a minute or two, okay? I appreciate
I'm not
that.
saying you have to wrap it up. I just want to try to keep the
I
focus
understand
as to
I
why
understand
we're
where
here
you're
this
coming from.
evening on this particular issue.
However, Mr. Deary presented a lot of information in support of this measure. I think that there should be a counterbalance to that as well. So I digress. I'll finish up in just a moment or two. So the perspective that I see here when we're talking about different types of losses that the city has encumbered over the last year or two, as far as the local municipal government fund or the estate tax issue, which is the, the death tax per se. Those were all, severe losses that the city had and were impacted financially. But these were the very same issues I brought up when we proposed a $3.6 million municipal public works facility, or the 2 green space initiatives that cost taxpayers over $1 million. So when I'm looking at these issues and I'm bringing them up throughout the course of the year, or a variety of other scenarios that come into play with the budget, I'm looking at the whole entire scenario here. So I do not believe that the city needs a $1.5 million income tax because of the roads, because I think we have the funds necessary to be able to make those costs and adjustments. However, to Mr. Kaiser's perspective, when you're looking at the city and its needs, I look at the city in a perspective very differently. I look at it that we're country club poor. We have this $82 million budget, but yet we don't have the money to be able to spur economic growth or the things that are necessary to bring more revenue into this city. And so I'm asking the general public, and I do firmly believe that it is within the power of the constituents to have their voices heard. And I only wish that Vice Mayor Messer had given me the opportunity to be able to talk 2 weeks ago, because although I'm talking negatively about this particular tax increase, I would have voted for it because I think it's important that the voice of the people is not squelched. So in this particular perspective, I am going to be voting for this measure because I think it is very important, and hopefully it is just as impactful that the community shed their light and their perspective on what they want us as council members to do. And hopefully I will see that you guys see the way that I do, that the city council should be cutting more deeply rather than coming to you and asking you to empty out your pocket. So, Mayor, I'm finished and I appreciate the time.
Great,
Thank
thank you. Others?
I will speak to it. I've stated my position previously, so I'll be brief. I feel that state and federal policy, to a large extent, is what put us in the bind that we're in. And I feel like the forced taking of even more money is a mirage of a fix. It seems when you add up the numbers, oh, this is going to take care of our problems. But I feel that it slows growth and recovery. Families have less to spend. Businesses have less to invest. Businesses will not have the ability to pay their people more, hire more, because part of their money is going to be going to an increased tax. Now, we and small communities just like us nationwide are dependent on higher levels of government, in large part because of policies and tax policies set by those higher levels of government. That's a frustration to me, and it's nationwide, communities, local communities nationwide. So now what we would be doing is the same thing to our constituents. We're going to be taxing them into further dependence to their government through the forced taking of more money. I think there's a balance between the need for taxes and freedom, and I feel that taxes as a whole, the vast majority of which we do not control, are out of hand. And I feel strongly that it is not in our long-term best interest to increase taxes. While it likely will pass tonight, if it does not pass at the general election, I would then hope that we as a council would then be willing to have the hard discussions and make those difficult cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Any other?
Mayor, if I may, one more, if anybody else doesn't have
Make
anything to
sure.
say.
Others? Anybody else? Go ahead again, and then I'll make a couple comments.
Mayor, just again, in regards to Councilmember Monroe's comments, I would urge her, if she were to have some kind of an equation as far as how to solve the problem, rather than going to the taxpayers and asking them to empty out their wallet to do so, rather than put this measure out there. I understand, you know, the civics lesson here, that there is absolutely, in fact, state and federal issues that have impacted us and where money has been taken away. And even from the allocation of the way that income tax is taken away from the employer as a whole is completely disconcerting to me. The fact that people who don't even live in the community work somewhere else and have to pay some other municipality's taxes, but then they come home and they're not obligated to pay taxes. And, I mean, I'm with you on that, Councilmember Monroe, but you had mentioned last week that because you're in the minority of the opinion that there are no, that nobody wants to see any cuts, I think it's your job as a council member to be able to present them if you have them.
And I do. And when I talked after council last week, or a couple weeks ago, with several council members, I think you were having a discussion with someone else at the time. And as Mayor Brewer stated tonight, she would like, and I agree, to have those specific discussions about what we're going to cut in a work session, because that is not what we're voting on tonight. And it does appear that it's probably is going to pass tonight, and I would be willing to have that discussion with you after this meeting and at the next meeting. But
I
like
would
I
welcome
said,
that,
what my expectation is that it's probably going to pass tonight. And then my expectation on the general election is I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. And so if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, then we will actually have to act on it. But we can talk tonight after the meeting if you'd like.
I would welcome that. And I just, you know, the only point where I think our viewpoint is different is I think that the people of the community deserve to hear this, number one. Number two, I certainly believe that they have the right to vote on this issue. And my hope is that they hear me loud and clear and they vote no on this, and they send a resounding message to council that we need to sharpen our pencils and open up our books. So from that perspective, I do welcome your debate and your conversation, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
May I make one more comment?
Sure.
I also appreciate the fact that we would look at cutting our expenses elsewhere, and I applaud Matt and Wendy for that. However, in the meantime, we've let the roads go too long, and we have to pay for some past sins here. And luckily, this is I like the idea that this is for 5 years only. And in the meantime, we can make those hard decisions while we're waiting, while we're getting our roads fixed. And let the citizens decide that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I add something to my previous comments?
Yes.
Thank you. And I wanted to respond to Councilmember Monroe's point about not wanting to raise the income tax burden on our people, and that it should be a last resort. I completely agree with that. Councilmember Rodriguez agreed with that. I am certain that every member of this council would agree with that. However, I've been on this council 4 years, and I am satisfied that we are there. We have to resort to a revenue increase. Let me give you some examples when it comes to cutting costs. Since I've been on council, we had an extensive discussion that went on for years about whether to continue to fund the infrastructure on which the train runs. The infrastructure costs something in the ballpark of $200,000 a year. We spent something like $40,000 on a study by some experts. We looked at the study. We cross-examined the expert. We debated many times in work sessions about the train. And in the end, we decided to keep it. Something similar happened regarding our court system. In the end, we decided not to make changes. Something similar happened about the civic donation program. We kept it. I'm convinced we are to the point where this council does not want to cut essential services and even some non-essential services, some of them I just mentioned. We need more revenue. Secondly, I want to correct something I said. I said we had the lowest income tax rate in southwestern Ohio. What I meant to say is we have the lowest income tax rate in Warren County. There are 11 cities in Warren County for which we have been given data. We are at a 1% rate. We are now requesting an increase to a 1.25% rate. There's no city lower than our current 1% rate. There are many cities that have a higher rate. Franklin, Ohio, for example, has a 2% income tax rate. So we are well below the average tax rate, which is 1.3% in Warren County. If this provision is passed, we will still be below the average tax rate in Warren County. And finally, the main reason I am for this revenue provision is because if we do not fund the maintenance of our roads now, it will cost far more 5-10 years from now for this city to rebuild its roads. This is an important point that staff has made to us for years. It costs far less to properly maintain a road than it does to wait for it to completely crumble and it needs to be rebuilt. We're talking about a factor of something like 6 or 7. It costs 6 or 7 times more to rebuild a road. That's what the citizens of Lebanon are going to be paying down the road, or more accurately, that's what their children will be paying. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Others who have not had an opportunity to speak.
Well, Your Honor, I have deep feelings, but, it's kind of hard to fit into this discourse. Initially, and I think I'm able to hold on to this pretty consistently, we're asking for a measure here in which the voters will choose to raise revenue for roads and road repair. In my mind, staff has consistently given us a road upon which I can say to anyone, I'm glad to say it now, again, and I've said it many times, I think we are fantastically led by city staff. I am not convinced there's any place else to find revenue. And that's why, I'm sitting here tonight working with those to form consensus as best we can in doing our obligation as council people. And I don't think that includes going any further than we have, and it's too far that we've gone to address our severe road repair issue, and Councilman Deary hit it right on the nail head. To fully reconstruct like High Street is far more expensive than conducting a maintenance program. As I listen to comments, I've been dusting off a few things that, this measure, if it were passed, would certainly not address all our needs. It would take years to make a gradual positive move. I don't know if Mr. Brunker or Mr. Clements could clarify any more or quantify that revenue amount that would be added would address the matter positively. But I don't even think in the 5 years that we would draw revenue, it would address it, what I'll say, adequately. Is that fair to say? It's not going to be all we need. It's not like the great panacea, we just solved the problem.
If implemented, the tax increase would generate about $8 million over the 5-year life of the increase. Currently, the city's level of effort on road maintenance is only about 25% of what is actually required. In other words, we're short in terms of the level of effort by about $1.5 million a year to properly sustain a road maintenance program. So, certainly the revenue generated from a 5-year, 1/4% increase in the tax rate, would be substantially helpful and certainly a good shot in the arm in terms of addressing some of the backlog. But to answer your question, I think more specifically, I would not characterize it as a permanent sustainment of the level of effort that's actually required.
Mm-hmm. I thank you for that point of clarification. In seeking consensus and compromise to arrive at this moment, I would assure the public that we have gone through a lot, and it's our job to do so, to arrive at this moment. I think that one of us had something to say about the need for a unanimous front to throw an issue out there to the public that they have not voted to change for 42 years, to me is incredibly significant. I therefore, and I say this very hesitantly, with regard to where our discourse has gone in previous sessions, to arrive tonight at where we have, at least from some quarters, a sense that a call for the public to not support this issue. I don't have anything dramatic I want to do or say. Why would we put the issue on the ballot? At the same time, I want to say, I don't believe there's any other revenue we're going to find of any significance. I've attended most of the meetings over the past, what's gotten to be many years, parts of my 4 terms. I believe in this staff. I don't see anything out there. If someone's going to get some anticipation that we're going to go into sessions and start doing things to find a mountain of revenue, or take some radical change with regard to what we support or don't support as part of city service, that's not how the majority of council feels, or it would have happened a long time ago. In conclusion, and I'm sorry to go on, Your Honor, I feel that if we can come in here and unanimously vote for this issue, to just let the voters throw in and say something, even though it's got its philosophical undertones that are hard for some of us. Well, let's put it this way, harder for some of us. It's hard for all of us. I live in the city. I'm going to be paying more tax. It affects me, affects my wife, affects our family. I close by saying the front that we're presenting to whoever may watch this or those who are listening here in this chamber tonight, why would we even bother? It's kind of where I'm coming from. Okay, Your Honor, I'll pause. Hopefully I have nothing else to say about that.
Others?
I think it's important to note something that hasn't been mentioned, but I think is important. When I was elected 4 years ago, the citizens' approval of the road system was in the 40s, mid-40s. Our most recent approval rating has dropped us down into the 20s. 20% of our citizens approve of the job that we're doing when it comes to our basic need or infrastructure in the city. I kind of find that hard to contend with due to the fact that that's kind of my job, is to create an environment for not only citizens but for businesses to thrive and for citizens to thrive as well. We have experienced significant loss in our general fund revenue. It's a simple equation of, unfortunately, it's a simple equation of money in and money out. And what essential services do you want to cut to pave your roads? Do we want to look into the future and hamstring ourselves as we try and fight for business, try and fight for new citizens by cutting essential services or cutting fantastic employees' salaries. These are the things that you have to weigh back and forth. And I believe that it is in our best interest to allow the public to vote on something that gives them a voice here. They've given us a voice with a 20% approval rating. I think that giving them an opportunity to begin to fix the problem, begin to fix the issues that we are dealing with is important as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Others?
Mayor, if I may. I'd like to, if I could, address some facts that I think are a bit misleading and/or distorted, and I'd like to bring them up if at all possible. First of all, I believe Councilmember Deary had mentioned that we have $200,000 allocated towards the train on an annual basis. We have $200,000 that's budgeted towards the train. Whether we use that full $200,000 or not remains to be seen. However, the $40,000 study that was approved, I mean, I'm the last person that likes to spend money, let alone on a study, but that study indicated every single thing that I had been talking about for 6 years plus. So suffice it to say, it didn't do much for me, and I was only hoping that it did more for council, for those that were on the fence. And need I remind that it was a unanimous vote when we decided to support the train. The $200,000 is nothing more than I would like nothing more than to be able to take that $200,000 and place it somewhere else. The whole concept behind the approval of the train is to get it on a footing that would supply some form of commerce that would allow us to be able to apply for bids that would essentially grant us the money. And very, very little has been done to date regarding that scenario. Regarding the court consolidation study, which came out, oddly enough, 2 years ago yesterday, we had one meeting in regards to that in October of 2013, and it was asked to be pushed off simply because...
Councilmember...
Mayor, please.
No, and Councilmember Rodriguez, what I'm going to say to you, again, is that, okay, you can identify courts, you're identifying cuts, which we can discuss at our work session, that talks about the cuts that you're taking a look at. I'm kind of doing a little sidebar here, and I'm trying to refocus things, so I'll ask you again, some of those issues, again, more specifically and more discussion, we can bring up in terms of meetings and how many meetings we had, or really is not the time for this particular discussion.
But Mayor, I digress when I hear that we've had multiple council members here talking about things in the affirmative to such that really is, I think it's in direct opposition of what they're saying. I mean, these are half-truths. And I think it's absolutely within my realm to be able to point those out.
You can point them out, but we're not going to have a discussion about the details. If you're listening to me,
Okay.
the discussion about we had only one meeting, we did this. That's the details that we can
Okay.
talk about
Okay,
when
Mayor.
we go to a work session. You can point them out, and I'm not saying that it's not in your privy or your perspective to do that. But we're not here to talk about the courts. I don't think anybody up here who has mentioned something is not talking about it in great detail. And that's where I'm asking you to kind of focus your comments.
Okay.
Of course you can mention them, but we're not here. Everybody has had some similar but very different perspectives on what we're voting on this evening. Nobody's
Okay.
discussed it too much.
Okay.
Your perspective versus Councilmember Deary's versus Vice Mayor Messer's, whoever. There's a very, very
Okay.
diverse perspective on this.
Okay.
But I do not think it's the time and place to go over these details. I'll use courts as an excellent example. We don't need to be talking about the court issue.
Okay.
That can be discussed at our work session, along with some of the other issues that other people have
Okay.
brought up to talk about.
Okay. Well, I would disagree with you, but I will, in fact, hold those to what you were talking about, and I'll minimize that then, Mayor, regarding the court's study and consolidation or what have you. But when we're looking at an issue here where we're looking to raise $1.6 million over a period of 5 years, we've got some severe shortages when it comes to the police and fire issue. When we have, police officers, we don't have that many. We don't have that many on detail. And when I look at this overall scenario with the budget, and that from the perspective that I see, that we can come up with about $1.5 million worth of cuts. And when we look at scenarios, i.e. the court, there are safety issues that are a bigger concern than just financial issues. So that I hope that we can talk about in chambers as well. But I also want to digress that 2 weeks ago when we were talking to the general public and saying, we need an income tax increase, at the very same meeting, we passed a 2.5% increase for employees' compensation. So in 2004, I came onto this council with a $52 million budget. This year, we're at an $80 million budget. Last year, we were at an $82 million budget. So we're down 1.2%, and we're still giving out payroll increases that are compounded year after year. And, I believe one of the council members made a point that you would rather have it, the court system under city control versus county control, when we, in fact, as a city, have given over, I'll just give an example, city inspections that used to be under the city's purview over to the county, and we've lost essentially about $120,000 worth of revenue.
You know what, and
So,
Hate to
these
keep-
are
I know-
just examples, Mayor, I am finishing up.
Please finish up,
I'm
because
absolutely done.
you are continuing to say the same things that you've mentioned through the progress of this meeting. I need you to be able to keep those notes of yours, bring them to your work session so that we can discuss some of those items that you continue to bring up.
Mayor,
It's a theme. You keep on.
It is a theme, Mayor, and the major concern that I have here, and I will be wrapping up after this last comment, is the reason why this income tax increase and the information that I'm providing here today is, if I recall, the city is tied for the lowest median income in the county, and we've got to take a look at that. When we ask our constituents regarding a 0.25% increase, we have to be able to sharpen our pencils. We have to look, and there is absolutely room to be able to cut. I can't see that within a $30 million swing within 12 years, we can't afford $1 million to $1.5 million. That's where I see a problem. That's where I have a disparity with the issues. And I don't believe that we've talked about it enough. If you can point out one specific meeting to me in 4 years that actually talks about the things that we talked about, I would be surprised. I am done now, Mayor. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a few comments myself. And where do I even start? I'd first like to thank everybody on council for their different perspectives on the issue and being able to verbalize them. As you can see from those who may be watching or have been following in the media, that this is not a decision that has been an easy one for any of us. I have a little bit different perspective than Councilmember Rodriguez in the fact that we continually, staff as well as this body, continual look at fine-tuning our budget, making cuts when there are necessary. I think government as a whole needs to do that all the time. And I think that this council and staff continue to do that. My perspective is that the cuts, any cuts that would be made, do not equal the amount of dollars that we need to fix our roads. Again, it's government's job to take a look at that and make that happen. But again, I don't think the cuts equal out the amount of dollars that we have. You take a look, all of us look at it, the audience, we have 4 adults. 2 I know that are Lebanon residents, 2 others, 1 who is not. You look out there in the audience, there's nobody here. Which says to me, and there was media on that, there was information in the paper, but yet we still have people not here, which goes to my perspective of placing it on the ballot. One of the biggest complaints I hear about government, not only in our communities but in our country, is that government makes too many decisions for us. And so for me, placing this on the ballot allows my constituents, our constituents, to let us know what they want. Because I talk to individuals here and there, and I have heard people on fixed income say, I would support this type of initiative. And then others who say, those who represent small business, I'm a family of a small business, live and work in this community, would definitely impact me. Where's the fairness in that? I think what we're saying here is placing it on the ballot and not making decisions on our own in this is, please tell us, give us a pulse as to what we need to do. We've put many initiatives on the ballot and a road levy and this type of levy. What we're merely saying is, residents, tell us what you want. Guide us while we independently make decisions with regard to our budget. Because again, this is a tough decision. I have council members up here who do not support this, would support this initiative, but yet they're willing to place it on the ballot so that our constituents can tell us what they want. And that's my perspective. This is not an easy decision for myself or anybody else up here. But sometimes there are times when we are elected to make tough decisions. This is one of our tough decisions to do. But you know what? The tough decision is really out there with the voters. Of course, we're all voters. Important thing is, everybody gets out there to vote. You tell us what you want, that will guide us. So I believe we've had a lot of great discussion. So I'm going to call the question. And Ms. Stick, please call the roll.
Mr. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Norris,
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe,
No.
Mayor Brewer,
Yes.
Mr. Messer,
Yep.
Mr. Deary,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's a 6-1 and passes. So let's move to new business, resolution number 2015-083.
Resolution number 2015-083 is a resolution declaring necessity of placing before the electors of the city of Lebanon, Ohio, at the next general election, the issue of increasing the Lebanon, Ohio city earnings tax from 1% per annum to 1.25% per annum.
Mr. Clements.
This legislation will approve the declaration of necessity of placing before the electors the issue of increasing the City of Lebanon's earnings tax from 1% to 1.25% per year on the November 3rd, 2015 ballot for the purpose of providing additional funds for the maintenance of and new construction of public roadways of the city for a period not to exceed 5 years commencing January 1st, 2016.
And do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Your Honor.
Discussion or comment? I think we've had a great deal of discussion, so let's go right to the vote.
Mr. Deary?
Yes.
Agreed?
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
No.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Mr. Messer?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
All right, discussion items, city manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next meeting of the City Council will be a work session on we moved it to on the 5th of August at 7 p.m. in the downstairs conference room. I'd like to remind the council that National Night Out will be at 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 4th up in front of the YMCA up on Deerfield. And following this meeting, in about 35 minutes at 7 p.m., Planning Commission will meet in regular session. And that's all I've got tonight, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Discussion items, Councilmember Kaiser, anything this evening?
Just one item. It's been brought to my attention that there are still some people who have not been able to find housing, assisted living housing, people who have families who have children who are disabled and are other people behind. This is behind the filling station there. Person who is a double amputee, can't find work, can't find other housing assistance. And I was just wondering if there's anything that our staff could do to kind of help them possibly find some sort of other, since they've already been told they have to leave, and I guess some of the housing assistance has dried up and don't know what's available for them.
Could I comment to that,
Yes.
Councilmember Kaiser, with some excellent points to that? I will say one, as I'm taking a look at Chaplain Doug Sipsey, who and Diane, who are actively involved in so much community service. For me, government in terms of and getting involved in that piece is probably not the venue to do that, but I think you really are looking at resources, the potential for resources for those citizens for that. Doug, what would be the best way